we're now looking ahead to the next module, which is right livelihood. This is module 3. And the way I see it, it's about becoming the change we want to see in the world. The module starts with looking at various alternative national and international level indicators. So for instance, there's just new ways that governments particularly are looking at how they mark themselves, how they know whether they're achieving the ends they want to achieve. So some of the ones that have been suggested, there's the gross national happiness, which the state of Bhutan has taken up, which I think is a fascinating development. And given that it's a Buddhist society, it has some concept of well-being. There's a concept of how to create that in a sense of how to engender it in a person. So I think it's quite interesting now to take that into a national level indicator. Another indicator that has been suggested is the Genuine Progress Indicator, GPI. And sort of things that GPI measures is income distribution, public consumption expenditure value of household and community work, the cost of unemployment, the cost of underdevelopment, costs of commuting, cost of transport, industrial accidents, cost of crime, and so on. So it's an attempting to get away from this notion that anything that generates any kind of economic activity is good, because clearly it isn't. It's trying to get a sense of, well, what are the things that are kind of negatives, that are costs, and what are the things that are benefits, and how can we create an indicator that shows us us maximizing the good stuff, the benefits, and the stuff we want to maximize. Another indicator is the Human Development Index, the HDI. It takes life expectancy at birth, adult literacy, and how many people go into what stage of education, and also then it looks at the GDP per capita. So it's a step in the right direction, but there's probably better ones out there. There's also the Happy Planet Index, which measures kind of ecological efficiency married with human well-being. Gross national happiness has already been talked about. And then there's some other indicators that have been developed at community levels. So there's community level indicators, participatory budgeting. Boston, the city of Boston in the US is doing some very interesting projects which basically go out and ask people in the community, what do they think is really important to that community, and then measures it, which is a pretty sensible idea. It's important, like if we're going to talk about sort of consumption, say, so if we move from the national to the on a citywide or bioregional level, then to the personal level. So how do we start to talk about what is a good way to be a citizen, or the right way to consume? So there's all sorts of ideas about ethical consumption. And Aldo Leopold, back quite early on in 1949, formulated this idea that a thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it does otherwise. So that's a really interesting reformulation of ethics, bringing in our connection to the natural world. Some of the other ways is that people are looking at this idea about, well, how do we live as individuals? What makes sense is to live in a simplified way. Sometimes it's called downshifting. There's various different. I mean, there's a whole bunch of bloggers now who are looking at, like, there's the no money man who didn't use any money for a year, and other such experiments with how to live a more simplified life. And obviously there's the kind of back to the earth and hippie movement, which for many years has been examining that, in the eco-village movement. Then there's also some ideas about collaborative consumption, so that, rather than everybody buy a thing that we buy it together and share it. So there's all sorts of platforms for doing that now. Things like ThreadUp, Baby Swap. I assume that doesn't mean swapping babies. I mean, it means swapping baby stuff. Landshare, and various other things. And then the module looked at different platforms, different websites that looked at ways in which we create charities, places that we can access and stream inspirational videos, ways in which to find ways to get uplifting news, because so much of the news we get is so negative, and so on. There's a whole list at the end of the module. So that's basically what we're looking at. Personally, I would have liked to see a bit more about how can I do the work, and how can I make that work in terms of getting the money I need, or enable me to share or barter or create a way so that I can live a decent life, but also do a life that is meaningful to me. But I'd like to have seen a bit more of that in the module, so maybe we can focus on some of that over the next couple of weeks as we go through that module in the forum. Thank you.